If I make the theme song last long enough, the show will be over before I get done. See? Okay, well, welcome
You
everybody.
could always tune for a while.
I could. I have, and I probably will again. So anyway, welcome everybody. This is Tom's Guitar Show. I'm Guitar Tom. They call me Guitar Tom because I'm often seen with a guitar. They call me on the phone. I'm starting to stumble over my words. They call me on the phone, and they ask me. They say, "Hey man, what's your show about?" I say, "Oh, it's about an hour. It's about guitar players, guitar playing, all things guitaristic." So if you want to call me on the phone, ask me a question about your guitar, the care and feeding of your guitar, what kind of guitar is right for you. You want to talk about some related topic, like the guitarrón, the sitar, the guitarras, lutes, vihuelas, chetoles, banjos, balalaikas, bouzouki, bajos, sextos, mandolins, mandoras, mandolas, mandocellos. You want to talk about cavaquinhos and cuatros and ukuleles and banjolales and banjolins. And if you want to talk about, I said banjos already, I think, and banjos, balalaikas. Anyway, okay, if you want to talk about
Kazoos.
kazoos, yeah, harmoniums, harpsichords, harmonicas, clarinets, clavinets, trumpets, trombones, trombomarinas, cornetos, pipe organs or piccolos, auto harps or pixie harps or I don't know. I mean, violins on television. Anything like that. Anything musical is fine. Politics, world events, your own personality problems, World Cup. I don't care, man. Just keep it clean because this is a family program. Okay. Let me dispense with that. I know you want to hear my personal stuff, but I stayed up really late last night, and this is the slow season for me. This is actually the only thing I really had to do today is Tom's Guitar Show. So, but anyway, I stayed up late last night, and I went through my Telecaster collection. I think I've got 6, basically. Let me count. I've got an American G&L. I've got 2 Mexican Fenders Telecasters. I have this Canadian job here. Let's see. I have another G&L. That's right. Another G&L. You see, actually, so I have 3 G&Ls, 2 Fenders, and this Snow, which is actually the Godin company now. The guitar, it used to be called Guitar Bec, and then it was La Si Do, which is ABC, La Si Do, Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, Do, or La, Ti, Do, depending on what language you say Do, Re, Mi in. By the way, I've read that the Do, Re, Mi thing goes back to Roman times. That was how they kept track of their notes. They said it slightly differently, so it's actually possible to look up the notes that were sung or chanted to Roman poetry.
Actually, it was Latin.
Yeah.
It originally was
Mr. Skipinski, microphone.
Well, yeah, I've heard that it was. I've read it actually in more than one place. Of course, sometimes it's disinformation, and somebody just copies somebody else's thing, and then it's bad from the source. But that somebody had. Oops, something just went kapow. I heard somebody.
I guess our executive director isn't coming to the microphone.
He might, but we have.
There he comes.
We have highly qualified and talented interns mining this, manning, womaning, personing. Well, manning, I think, just means a human is behind it.
Yeah,
So
we have a mystery camera operator tonight that doesn't want to identify herself.
Could you give us just your first name or your initial? Sane. Sane. Okay. I knew camera operator. Anyway, so yeah, you can always hide behind the curtain. There we go. That's okay. Maybe she's shy. So.
More of our youth movement.
Yeah, we do have younger people who work on this show. Basically, this has become a program for old men. I will say that when I first began it, I really wasn't all that old, but it's been 20 years now, and you know how it is. So,
But in the summertime,
yeah.
we get people who aren't part of the Jarzal generation.
Well, we get people during the year too, because a lot of times the college students want more experience who work in media, and you get more experience here than you can, at the university, because there's always opportunities for volunteering or internships. So we, you get a lot of experience. By many years ago, before Tom's Guitar Show, I volunteered for everything. I did all kinds of interesting shoots, all kinds of wild adventures. You know, walking around, or going around with a camera and being a part of a camera crew, or be the guy they sent out with a camera to cover an event, things like that.
Back when you were young and the world was new.
Yeah, that's right. And we were using 3/4-inch pneumatic tape. See, and
Now we're digital.
that's right. You had to feed the squirrels in the camera to keep them running around the wheel. See, so, yeah. And we had electronics in those days, but it was all analog. So you could get a digital watch, but there goes the boss. Well, all right. Anyway, sorry, I was thinking about bothering our
Our
executive
fearless
director.
leader has left the building.
Yeah, it's all right. Everybody knows what they're doing around here anyway. So
Did you have an announcement to make?
well, I guess I have several announcements to make, but one I'd like to mention to anybody who will listen is that on July 19th, I'm going to do a kind of a Tom's Guitar Show event. It's going to be a Saturday. It'll be in the afternoon from between 1 and 3 by the fountain. Was it the water dance or what's that fountain called downtown? I keep thinking it's the river dance, but it's like it's the fountain downtown Iowa City in front of the hotel. They have a little stage there, and I'll be doing a program in that afternoon for, of course, open to the public. And I'm trying to generate interest, get a camera crew there, and I'd ask anybody who's on the camera crew to wear PATV regalia, a T-shirt perhaps, and then we'll make it a PATV event. And one of my notions actually is to have it be a 1-hour program and have it show instead of this show at some point.
On one of our weeks off?
I'll take I was thinking about actually taking a week off, like late July or in August. Leaving like on Sunday and coming back on Wednesday, or something like that, and spending a couple of days goofing off somewhere exotic like Dubuque. Look at the museum and stuff. Maybe ride on a paddle wheeler and stuff. And, but that's not my motivation for this. I'm going to do it'd be a modest PATV event, and I'd like to invite people to be there. I should probably do some serious press releases and, just try to do something. I'm not going to probably say much, if anything at all. I was thinking about not saying anything at all, but they were saying, we have these things, I don't know where they are this week, but we have a little thing you put in the microphone that says PATV,
yeah.
like you can shove it in somebody's face when you're interviewing them. I think I'm going to leave one of those on my mic. And I want the camera crew to have PATV T-shirts. And,
As technical staff, where are our PATV things this week?
It's all right. Maybe they can put a bug on the screen or something. But anyway, that's what I'm doing on the 19th. That's my announcement. So anyway, I want to play this thing a little bit. I was babbling about
Nod if you know where the PATV microphone collars are. I see nodding.
Oh, well. So anyway, I went through my Telecaster collection. I acquired this guitar, and you can tell I'm an old geezer, because I acquired this one in 1985. Huh? What do you think of that, huh?
The year I was born.
That was the year she was born. Our camera operator. Oh. That's probably before
Told you we weren't all Geritol generation here.
Yeah. So, well, 85 is already kind of a long time ago. Yeah. If you're born in 95, then you'd be 19, but you're pushing 30, aren't you? Ah. Oh, yeah, colors. Can I get this on?
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Now we're official.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. She's shy, too. I don't understand it. There are probably these people who don't want to be on camera, probably more photogenic than I am. All right, if I unplug this thing, if it goes click at home, I'm sorry. Plug it in. Okay.
See, we really are PATV.
There you go. How's that, huh? Now you know I'm a company man.
And if you want to be PATV, come on down.
That's right. Well,
We're at the corner of South Dubuque and Lafayette, and you can come down and learn everything we know.
and probably more.
Then the next day, they'll teach you something.
That's right. Well, I'll say I knew how to run everything really well back in the old days. Back in the analog days,
Yeah.
I became an expert on tape. I didn't know that much about it when I started out, but I took all the workshops diligently, and I did my homework, and I volunteered for things, and I made programs, and I edited, and I worked on other people's shows all the time. And I learned everything. And then I started Tom's Guitar Show, and I got more and more in front of the camera, and now I tell you, I don't know, Mr. Skopinski back there had me doing some switching. That's been a few years, though, hasn't it? Since he did his last show.
We should mention that the training at PATV is now free.
It's not free, yeah. So, anyway.
We didn't mention where you're going to be this weekend.
Well, I'll tell you while I do this. I'll be at the Tuscan Moon on Saturday
Is that in Kelowna?
in Kelowna. I won't be there Friday because it's 4th of July. They're closed. Maybe I'll be at the fireworks or something. Unless it's underwater. And, but I'll be there, Tuscan Moon, on Saturday night. The show is supposed to start at 6, so I'll probably be there about 6:30. And then on Sunday, I'll be at the Journey Church in Coralville, off of Oakdale Boulevard, almost to North Liberty. The turnoff that you would normally take to go to the Oakdale campus, on the right, take a left instead. And
But
Starts
don't
at
go up to the
10:30.
barbed wire or the chain link fence with barbed wire on top.
yeah, then you've gone one step too far. It's right before the prison, the Medical Classification Center. Be there on Sunday. Now, I'm not personally religious, but they're quite liberal, about their tolerance and stuff. I don't call it tolerance if you welcome gay people into your church. It's not exactly tolerance. It's a lack of intolerance, I suppose. That's an A minor 6/9. Think of that, huh? Sorry, I do this chord theory thing. I like to explain what I'm doing here. I say that, tell people about this periodically, and a lot of people already know about looping because it's been around for a while now. And I keep doing all this old geezer reminiscing stuff. But if you look down at my feet there, you'll notice this is a ditto, a TC Electronics ditto, and this is a very simple recording device, but there's like a flash memory in it. But if I just do something like that's going to go around and around again. See, it's going to go and do that forever. If I push it for a second and a half, whatever I just played is gone forever. So what I'm doing is a loop, like a loop goes round and round. Music goes round and round, if I do, one really good idea, I think, for somebody who's trying to learn how to play is like if you want to play more like a rock, blues, or jazz type of oriented music, you just take a 12-bar blues, like a typical, 1, 2, 3, 4. 12 measures. It's like Sweet Home Chicago. It's a whole lot of songs. So one thing you have to be able to make a loop that's like correct and not messed up, which is you become a better rhythm player. But then you get to play. You get to play lead guitar all night long, you won't inconvenience anybody except your neighbors. That's what headphones are for. Well, that's what I do with my looper. I mean, you can do other things with it. A lot of people do the beatboxing thing. In fact, a lot of them are kind of designed more with the beatboxers in mind. If you don't know what that is, it's a very controlled way of kind of spitting into a microphone and make a lot of, like, actually well, Dusty, well, here I go again. But when I was a boy, my band director said to me that a lot of times the stuff you do wrong when you're like in 5th grade is stuff you do all the time when you're a jazz musician. And he was a horn player. I was kind of a weird kid. I was in the band and the orchestra and the choir. So I hung around the music department there at City High a lot when I was a kid. But when I was in the jazz, I played string bass and guitar, so I was in the jazz band along with being in the orchestra as the string bass player, but one of them. But anyway, so the thing is like, okay, if you do something wrong, like you squawk on your saxophone or something, that's what you do all the time when you're a jazz musician. But when you're in like 5th grade, that's like the mistake you always make. You get your embouchure wrong, and embouchure as in bouche as in the word for mouth. You get your mouth wrong on the reed, embouchure. As an aside, I want to say that like in guitar, like in classical guitar, or also in bowed instruments, but in string instruments, if you play near the bridge, it's called ponticello, which is Italian for near the bridge. And if you play up over the fingerboard, it's called sul tasto, or in French it's sur la touche. You know what that means? It's over the fingerboard, you see. So if somebody's playing something on the guitar, say the classical guitar, and they do something like, they want it to be like sound like a brassy like that, say, play ponticello. Say, ponticello, what does that mean? Over by the bridge. Well, why didn't you say that in the first place? Say, well, hey, man, if I didn't say it in Italian, you wouldn't think I'd been to school. See? Or if you want to make it sound really sweet, like this, like a... It's really sweet up here where the strings are loose instead of like a... It sounds like... See what I mean? That's called sul tasto.
And if you practice that faithfully for 40 years, you'll have been a guitar player for 40 years.
That's right, yeah. Yeah. So there's this little boy's walking through the cemetery with his mother. They're looking at the gravestones, and one of them says, "Here lies a guitarist and a great man," or a great man and a guitarist, I guess. And he says, "Mama, how come there are 2 people buried in there?" Sorry. That's
Or like you've told us when you were a kid, you told your dad when you grew up you wanted to be a guitar player.
Yeah. Says, "Son, you can't have it both ways." Yeah. I was looking at some Iowa jokes, so most of them were like Southern hillbilly jokes. Yeah. Like you can tell the toothbrush was invented in Iowa because it would be called a teeth brush if it were invented anywhere else. Things like that, But one that I saw that was pretty vile, if you like sports, is that this fellow who was a Hawkeye fan found the love of his life and he wanted to marry her, but unfortunately she was a Iowa Cyclones fan. So he decided to make the ultimate sacrifice and become a Cyclone fan. So he went to his doctor and asked him, how do you do that? And his doctor says, well, it's very easy. You have surgery, you have half of your brain removed, and then you'll be a Cyclones fan. So he decided he's going to do it. So he did it, But when he's coming up out of the anesthetic, the doctor said, "I'm sorry, we had an accident, and we actually ended up removing 3/4 of your brain. How do you feel?" He said, "Go Hoosiers!" Anyway, that's not a very good joke either, is it? Sorry. But I mean, a lot of jokes. I was looking these up online, trying to broaden my horizons a little bit. But a lot of them were like Southern hillbilly jokes, because one thing is like people in Iowa don't really have bad teeth, any worse. They're better than a lot of places, I think. We probably have as good or better dental care than most of the other 50 states, but 49 states, excuse me, other 49. But and Puerto Rico, and don't forget Samoa. But anyway, but some of the jokes were things like a family from Iowa had went to New York for the first time. And they were fascinated by everything they saw. And when they were standing in front of an elevator, and a little old lady with a walker gets onto the elevator. They'd never seen one before. And so the doors close, and they see the numbers go up. And then they come back down, the door opens, and a beautiful young woman walks out. And the father says to his son, "Quick, shove your maw in there." So, see? That's not a good joke either. So I'm just, you know,
Iowan visited New York, stayed overnight in a hotel. Next morning, he goes down to the hotel restaurant and says, "I'll have a glass of iced tea." The waiter brings it to him, says, "That'll be $15." He's $15. Glass of iced tea ought to be $1. He said, "No, you have to pay for the ambiance, this beautiful room, the linen tablecloth, the linen napkins." Farmer says, "Okay." Waiter comes back a little later, says, "Will there be anything else?" He says, "Well, I'd have another glass of tea, but remember, I already paid for the ambiance."
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good, yeah. I like jokes. I mean, they say that the joke has gone out of fashion. I read an article some years that the joke is dead. It's all observational humor now. Like Jerry Seinfeld and George Carlin, you know, that's all observational humor. But a joke you tell a little story, you know. Like one joke, I might have told this on the show, like before, upstairs at Uptown Bill's, but this guy, you know, he actually gets swept off the deck of a ship, and of a boat, and he struggles to shore on a desert island, and he survives, but he spends many years living there all by himself. And then finally one day he's rescued. And then before they leave the island, he shows his rescuers around, like what he's done. He says Coconut Grove, where he harvested the coconuts, and then there's a lagoon where he would fish, and then there's this hut, and there's another hut with a little pointy thing on top, and well, that's where I worship. Oh, yeah. And there's another one similar, but it's kind of dilapidated over in the distance a ways. And they said, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, that's where I used to go to church." So, I think that's funny because, as you know, people change churches.
Do you know why Iowa State cheerleaders wear turtleneck sweaters?
Why?
To hide their flea collars.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Let's see, what do you call a good-looking woman on the campus of Drake University?
A miracle?
A visitor. That's what they say. I don't know. They say terrible things like that. There are three Hawkeye football players, a quarterback, a linebacker, and a tackle, all in a car. Who's driving? The police officer. Anyway, so anyway, sorry. Anyway, so as I said, this guitar is about nearly 30 years old. Seems to make little humming and crackling noises, but I played through my whole Telecaster collection. This has not been played for a year. I played this last summer at the Tuscan Moon. I don't think I played it since then. It's kind of neglected on the wall. It's actually a very nice guitar. The thing about a good guitar is it's not stale. And this is, well, 30 years old. Wow, man, it still plays okay? Sure, it's fine. It's fine. It was well built the first place, out of good materials.
That's not old for a guitar.
No, I have one on the wall. It was in 1822 or something. There's thereabouts from Germany. But I happen to know that I was talking to the guy at West Music today on the phone. They have a guitar. They've got a Les Paul Jr. from 1956 that they took in on trade, and it's usually those don't last very long because people snap those up. They're very expensive, of course. It's Les Paul Jr. was their cheap Les Paul back in 1956. Probably $60 or something like that, or $50. I don't know. Those were big dollars back then, but still, it was a cheap guitar. But now it's like thousands. But anyway, but I mean, the people like say, "Oh, wow, man, 1956. That's even older. Now that's even older than me. I'll have you know." Yeah. So anyway, well, hang on. I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to push this button, and that should be quiet. I'm going to switch guitars just because I can. I want to see if this other one crackles. Here we go. These are both fairly heavy. I should have brought light guitars because I'm pretty lazy. I've been through a lot for the last some months. This is July already, isn't it? It's July 1st.
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, it's not sort of good. I mean, gee whiz, the summer's already. It's going to be 4th of July on Friday. That's why I'm not playing Tuscan Moon on Friday, because it's 4th of July. That means the summer is like, oh well. Anyway.
Half over.
Yeah. Wow, this one's not making any noise at all. Not crackling or anything. Huh. That's pretty nice. This is an Ibanez. Ibanez is I think it's a Japanese company. Started out in Japan anyway, and they were making copies, counterfeit, like absolute replicas of mostly Gibsons and Fenders. They were like everything exactly the same, exact copies, and but really high level workmanship. And they were cheap. Actually, they were like accused of selling them below what it cost to really produce them, and making extremely favorable terms with music retailers. So there were a lot of really cool American
Kind of like what
companies.
the Koreans are doing now.
Well, the Koreans have moved on. Now it's the Chinese, and now it's moving to Indonesia. So I have you know this amplifier, this Fender amplifier here that I have, which is quite new. I've been swapping things. I forget what I swapped for that, but I've been swapping my old amps for new things. That actually is made in Indonesia. They were making them in China, and then before that it was Korea, but now they're going to Indonesia. See. Wherever they can get the poor peasants, whom they have, thrown out of the woods. If they've deforested the forests for lumber, or they've flooded the fields, the rice paddies and wheat fields for hydroelectric and stuff. They get the anyway. Never mind. Here I am taking advantage of veritable slaves in Asia. But anyway, Ibanez. So they got in trouble for this, and they're like, but they were like, the companies like Washburn, for instance, was a Chicago company. It was basically driven out of business. There still is a Washburn, but it's, and I think they're still making some stuff in the U.S., but most of it's all made in Asia. So all these factories have closed, and the Guild guitars and all this. So, and I'll say that the Asians are doing a pretty good job. Some of them are really fine. The Korean, there's one company where they make court guitars. There's been 3 generations of guitar builders there, and so their instruments are actually quite decent. It doesn't matter, what language the builders speak. It depends on how much of an artisan they are, how well trained and experienced they are, and the quality of materials. And the thing is, you can't just have guitars zoomed down an assembly line. They're like electronic components can be very precise. But with guitars, a lot of times they're working with wood. Should be anyway. And wood has different characteristics and stuff. You have to kind of know the wood, and you have to reject a lot of wood to build a good guitar. You have to reject a lot of wood and not use just anything. For instance, like solid body electric guitars, like a Stratocaster or Les Paul or something like that, you can build them out of particle board. You can take sawdust and chemicals and press the bodies. Instead of taking a piece of wood and carving it. If I'm going to natter on about one of my favorite subjects, I saw that Fender, when they build them in California, because Fenders are built in different countries and different places. They still build them in Corona, California, though, or they build them in Corona, California again, and they build a new factory, and they turn out some really nice guitars there. But there's a thing that they've been using old wood. So one thing they did was they found redwood from a bridge that was built during the WPA project during the Depression. So it's redwood. They built redwood Stratocasters out of this stuff. It's special. I mean, they're like $2,500 or special. This is old growth redwood that the body is made out of, and it's built by their American, well-paid, craftspeople. The another one that they have is a Telecaster made with pine from boards made from a barn that was torn down. That was built around the time of the Civil War in Michigan. This is this old pine, and this pine actually makes a very good tone wood for a Stratocaster or Telecaster, excuse me. And it's it's an old growth, and it was cut down in the 1860s. So they salvaged some boards, and they're building these special order guitars. They're quite expensive, of course, but they're if you like to collect things, you might find them quite worthwhile. So I find that kind of interesting. The other thing they say is that mostly what they do with these solid bodies is they take two pieces of wood and glue them together to get it wide enough, you know. These are all just one board. Because, you know, you used to be able to get bigger boards than you can now, because they cut down the big trees. And so anyway, that's sort of the opposite of making them out of particle board in Indonesia, with potentially you know, caustic, toxic chemicals, or poorly treated, housed, and protected workers. I'm not saying that this amplifier was built under those kinds of conditions. I have no idea. I was surprised when I saw it was made in Indonesia. They do a lot of stuff in Mexico. Fender does. This Ibanez is made in China. Design was designed long ago in Michigan for Gibson. And Gibson and Epiphone were in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And oh man, it's a small world after all. I was wrong. Dusty. It's so dusty too. Not dusty as the other one was. Huh.
Just real quickly, Tom, at the beginning of the show, you were talking about Do Re Mi, where those letters came from. I almost misspoke, and I didn't want to misspeak again because I misspoke on the show last week. But I started to think of a medieval hymn that was made up so that the monks could remember the notes, and it used to be Ut Re Mi, and but I don't think that was where the letters came from. They were just applying words to something that already was. So let me, before I misspeak about that, let me check that out, and I'll have that information for you next week.
Okay.
And then I think Julie Andrews changed it to Do Re Mi, but
Idea, a female idea.
Right. But anyway, it would be the medieval version of that, only Ut Re Mi. So,
Yeah.
because I misspoke last week, in reading the Billy Collins poem "Fishing on the Susquehanna," I misidentified the Susquehanna River as the river that flows through Philadelphia. It's not the Schuylkill River flows through Philadelphia.
Schuylkill.
Yeah, the Susquehanna is in Pennsylvania, but I'll have more to say. I'll come prepared next week to say more about both of those topics so we can clear it up for our viewers.
Geography and music history. Now I know it wasn't Do Re Mi Fa. It was not. It was similar. Whatever the Romans had. It was what Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti Do,
Right.
or Si Do, depending on who you are, grew out of. But it was something else originally. But it was similar, and maybe some of them were the same. So they're
Well, yeah. By the medieval time, it was like I say, Ut Re Mi were the first three. So, but we'll figure that out. We'll sort that out, and we'll have that information next week.
It could be that I'm completely wrong, and whatever I read was apocryphal, and it's apocryphal. Apocryphal?
Yeah. Meaning something that's not true originally.
Not originally true. Yeah.
A false story that's taken as true, unconfirmed. Yeah.
Unconfirmed. Unconfirmed. Apocryphal. Apocryphal. Yeah. Because it's something I've noticed. You know, if you read something and they cite something else somebody else wrote, or they don't cite it, but that becomes common knowledge because somebody wrote something. Originally, somebody got something completely wrong, or it was either disinformation, propaganda, or somebody's mistake, and it gets to be known as true. So,
unless it's on Wikipedia, then it's always true.
it's always true on Wikipedia, yeah. But Wikipedia is unreliable about certain things, more like political things and so forth. When it comes to certain like music theory, and in fact, it's changed actually since I was there last. But I was trying to solidify my knowledge of chord theory, and so I wrote out every single way to make a C chord that I could think of. And then this is some years ago, when Wikipedia was new, and then I had heard about the Wikipedia, so I went on Wikipedia to see, and basically almost the identical thing was already there. So I found that very interesting. But their theory, a lot of music theory stuff and everything is quite, you know. But I mean that's not really up for that much debate. You know, people have been figuring this thing out.
Right.
And you can get a master's degree or even a DMA. Sorry. Every week I yawn during the show. I'm sorry. It's not. Maybe people use this show to get their little children off to sleep at night. Never mind. Anyway, there's a lot of things though we think we've heard are true. One thing I noticed was interesting is there was a men's rights conference in Detroit, attended by a lot of Canadians, but people from the U.S. also. And so I watched part of it on YouTube and I read about it. And then I saw some interviews with people and read some articles about it, people who were not at all affiliated with it. And one thing they said, that this is like a white supremacist organization, but there were a lot of people there who weren't white. And it was for male privilege, but they weren't talking about male privilege. And many of the speakers were women, and many of the attendees were women, because, you know, women are interested in equal rights, but maybe not in the feminist context. So it was interesting that you know, you read these things, and I also watched an interview with somebody who was the interviewer was trying to equate it with KKK, the MRAs, the men's rights activists, with the KKK, And but they but they have this website. There's no hate speech on this. There's no calls to kill anybody, anything like that. So there's no connection. But the thing is, these journalists are all painting it this way. And then if you actually just go to the videos of the conference and the things that people who actually put on the conference and attended the conference, it's completely different from what you'd think. You say, well, these are a bunch of woman haters, and they want male privilege and stuff like that. But then you see the first 3 speakers were women, and then the keynote speaker was a woman who was involved in the shelter movement, the women's shelter movement in England. She was the founder of the first women's shelter in England in the early 1970s, and then she got death threats when she said that, because domestic violence is women commit a lot of domestic violence also. They commit half of the women beat men too, and a lot of men don't hit back, and so there are no shelters for men. So women commit most of the child abuse. The majority of the child abuse is committed actually by the mother, not the father. Which is this is just known, the truth. It's but it's not the narrative. So you say, well, this is interesting that And then I read another article written by somebody who was responding to an article somebody wrote about the acid attacks, where people throw acid in people's faces in Pakistan, for instance. But which is a terrible attack, and it's an attack against women, but it's also an attack against men, because they said, well, 43% of the victims of acid attack are women, 40% are men, and 7% are children, and they don't know the gender of the children. Of the people who throw acid in women's faces, many of them are other women, for various reasons. This is a terrible attack in the third world. So you say, well, it's not, if you've read an article about this to say this is a gendered issue, it's something that men are doing to women, they say, well, men are doing it to women, and women are doing it to men, and women are doing it to women, and men are doing it to men. It's not a gendered issue. It's like child abuse. It's not a gendered issue. It's a human issue. So sort of thing is like you start reading these things and you try to find the truth. So the person who wrote the article about the acid attacks, the one that was critical of men, saying it's male perpetrators, cited where she got the statistics. But the other person who wrote the rebuttal to this, she said maybe nobody was actually going to read, where they got the information, because she went to read the same study and got this information, that it was actually pretty close to even between men and women who were attacked this way. And then in the original article, they showed pictures of disfigured women. So they were from this same database. And so this other journalist showed pictures of disfigured men, and who, their faces are all burned up. It's a terrible thing to do. And in Jamaica, it's more men than women who are, it's like 50% men and 40% women, and the rest are children in Jamaica when the acid attacks occur. So you say, well, why would you make everything a gendered issue? If you're. So I guess I say it's interesting what the impressions you'll get. See, domestic violence, it's always men beating up women. You say, well, it's also women beating up men, and they say, well, men never get injured because women are weaker. Say, but women use, weapons. So if a woman hits a man with a frying pan or a golf club or something like that, and he goes to the hospital, and of course women, are more likely to abuse children than men. And they say, well, that's because women have more access, which doesn't make it all right in my mind. So I think, I look at this stuff and say, I personally, I'm in favor of equal rights for everyone. I think everybody should have, every individual should have rights, the same rights as everybody else, the same rights before the law, and should be treated fairly. But then I started reading these things. So I wrote, originally I read some terrible things about the MRA and everything like that. And so what I did was I went and researched them. I said, well, if they're that bad, I got to find out about this. And I did. And I went on the A Voice for Men, and I didn't see any hate speech or anything like that. They were talking about male incarceration rates. They're talking about boys falling behind in school, and that 3/4 of all suicides are male. And So males are much more likely to commit suicide than females. And, you know, and then the unfairness of family court. Fathers not being able to see their children. And, you know, things like that. And I didn't see anything like what I was told about them. So that makes me very dubious now of things I'm being told. Now, it may be that there are all kinds of haters among the men's rights activists. And there also is often conflated with the pickup artist ones, but they're not the same. They're very different ideologies, different groups. There are also the traditionalists who are women also. A lot of women in the traditionalist movement, they're usually very religious and they want to return to some sort of earlier model. And the men's rights activists don't feel that men have gotten a fair shake over history either. Which, I mean, if you compare average women to rich men, powerful men, that's true, but the average coal miner in the old days, you know, didn't have a very good lifestyle. Or
The average underground coal miner now doesn't have a very good lifestyle.
that's right. Well, they say also 93% of all workplace fatalities are men. So that's another issue that the MRAs talk about. So you start thinking, you know, but if you say these things, and maybe somebody, if anybody's watching, people say, oh, you must hate women. And I say, no, I say, no, I don't hate women. Some of my best friends are women, and always have been. I would, you know, definitely want equal rights for women. But I think I'm more like a humanist or an egalitarian. I think also if women are always portrayed as victims, then that's like a loss of power for them. If you think that, you know, and also if you scare women, so you're really likely to have an act of violence. You know.
Better play us out.
Well, I would say if you have, you know, why is violence gendered? I mean, sorry, I just watched this. They had this conference over the weekend, and I watched the highlights. Maybe I'll lose all my viewers, both of them.